So in this unit, we'll be talking about the reproductive system, which is the last unit of the year. Mention a few things just as a bit of introduction, actually quite a few things here. A couple things on reproductive system. It is, unlike other organ systems in the body, it is not functioning continuously. Think about your circulatory system, respiratory, digestive, all the other systems that we've talked about. They're constantly functioning in order to maintain homeostasis. Reproductive system obviously has a particular function that is not necessary all the time. There are some functions of the reproductive system that are happening continuously, but the ultimate products of that not necessarily. For most, as long as everything is correct on you, reproductive system does not happen or does not become active until puberty. Male and female reproductive organs are quite different from one another, but they basically share the same four tasks. And those tasks are, for first and foremost, to the production of gametes. For males, that is sperm, and for females, that is ova or eggs. They are also there for bringing those two gametes together and through the process of copulation, and so that those two gametes can be combined through the process of fertilization in order to create new offspring. And then that would be, I guess, part of that is number 3 as well, that fertilization occurring, which is the combination of those two gametes in order to create unique offspring that is genetically different than both parents. And then lastly, I guess particularly for the female, is the support and development of the fetus, which is called gestation, and then the birth of that fetus as well. So male and female reproductive structures are homologous to one another, meaning that even though they may not have the same structure or they may not have the same exact function, the structures themselves have very similar shape to them and very similar. They're derived from similar places. You can kind of see there's some similarities between, say, like the ovaries and the testes. There's a lot of similarities between the two, just not necessarily the same function. The primary sex organs for the male are the testes. For the female are the ovaries. And for the gametes, obviously we mentioned this earlier, for the male you have the sperm, and for the female you have the ova or the egg. These cells are produced through the process of meiosis, and the primary sex hormones that are released for males and females, these are both steroid hormones. For males, it's testosterone, and for females, there are two called estrogen and progesterone. And these are not only vital for the function, but also for the development of those reproductive organs and other tissues associated with the reproductive system. So, looking at the different hormones that are involved, there is first, and we'll talk about this in a little bit, is this thing called the hypothalamic pituitary gonadal axis, or the HPG axis. And this is the purpose of this is for the production of gametes, and then ultimately sex hormones that are regulated by the hypothalamus, which is part of the brain. The hypothalamus releases a hormone called gonadotropin releasing hormone, or GnRH, and this is released from the hypothalamus and interacts with the pituitary gland, which you can see there in the upper right-hand corner is a picture of the pituitary gland. And then the pituitary gland releases two hormones, luteinizing hormones and follicle-stimulating hormones. These two hormones are known collectively as gonadotropins, which basically the hypothalamus releases GnRH. These things release these gonadotropins, and they interact directly with the gonads, which are the testes and or the ovaries, and then those organs will release their particular hormones. For males, that would be testosterone, and for females, that would be estrogen and progesterone. And so these kind of act as a negative feedback, which you can see in this picture. When those hormones are released, they cycle back to the hypothalamus, and it turns off GnRH, and it produces another hormone called inhibin, which kind of tells you what it does. It just causes this process to be inhibited and turns off that production. For males, this is a non-cyclic process, and meaning that it's just kind of continuously happening. For females, it is a cyclic process, part of a regular cycle. During puberty, which puberty is basically a period of life when reproductive organs grow to adult size and become functional toward the end of reproduction. Basically, during puberty, what happens is this HPG axis is activated. And that is activated through the steroid hormones are kind of at low levels, cycling through the blood during development. And as you reach puberty, the hypothalamus becomes less and less sensitive to those sex hormones, and then it causes the hypothalamus to release GnRH, which GnRH then signals the production of those luteinizing hormones, follicle-stimulating hormones, which causes the individual to create testosterone or estrogen and progesterone, which begins puberty. That's kind of how that works. And then those sex hormones are then released in a normal pattern for adults. Like I said earlier, for males, is a non-cyclic pattern, which basically means the production of sperm is happening constantly. For females, it happens in a cyclic pattern, which happens in just regular intervals. And then lastly, by way of introduction, you have this process called meiosis. We're going to talk about meiosis for both males and females. The important thing is that there's very similar, and so you can see it here compared to mitosis, but very similar processes for male and females, except for that there's going to be a different product at the end of that. This process, meiosis, is particular to sex organs, so it's not happening in all the cells all over the body, and so its sole purpose is to create gametes, and the main idea here is that it releases or reduces the number of chromosomes. The average human cell has 46 chromosomes in it. This process reduces that number to 23, so that when it combines with the other gamete, you get 23 to make 46, which will grow into a new individual.